The meeting of the Joint Town and Village Oversight Committee for Comprehensive Planning. I'm Tom Rocco. I'm the chair of the committee. This is Ariana Bosco, who is a member of the committee representing the village of New Paltz. Dan Torres is a member representing the town of New Paltz. Michelle Holstead, the vice president for administration and finance of the college, is representing the college. The fifth member of the team is an excused absence. He notified us in advance that he would not be able to make this meeting. The subject of the meeting is comprehensive planning, and the comprehensive planner is Kurt Lavala, who sits at the end of the table. We've already introduced ourselves, but for the public for whom this is an initial meeting with Michelle Holstead, I want everyone to know that we welcome her. We've been looking forward to having participation by the college in this joint comprehensive plan, and we are more than happy that the president has chosen a person at your level of administrative and financial competence to be a member of this committee. The committee is not running the comprehensive planning process. The committee is an oversight and advisory committee to the comprehensive planner, but we are responsible to both the town and the village for the progress of the comprehensive planning process, and that's what we're about right now. So the first item that we need to address is where we're at this very moment. I believe that everybody here, and maybe people who are watching, I don't know about them, know that there was a hiatus in the planning process, partially caused by the necessity of Kurt leaving the area and for personal reasons going away. And we had a time of uncertainty that caused consternation among board members, and there was formal communication with Kurt about the need for him to address the deficiencies in the planning process that had occurred in the interim. And I just want everybody here to be certain that everybody knows where we're at here. That we're beginning, not at the absolute beginning of the planning process, but we're beginning anew, and Kurt is on notice that it's necessary for us to catch up and to have the planning process be not only in good shape, but the future schedule to be rather certainly structured, and that this be communicated to both the town and the village boards. So that's where we're at from my point of view. I'm open for input from our other team members if they want to address this same issue.
I think you summarized it very well.
Well done, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Okay, so without need to belabor that, then Mr. Lavala can start briefing us. I tried to lay out what I understood to be the probable next steps about which we need to be briefed, because, and I should say this also for the public as well as for your knowledge, that Kurt and I had a meeting, a separate meeting, just the two of us, over lunch, which each of us paid for ourselves. That's a joke. It's true.
Yes, it is.
And I just laid out here these brief statements of where we're going And if we can get going on this, I believe we will be able to communicate to the rest of our colleagues that we're truly en route to a good comprehensive plan. So do you want to start with where we're going with these 4 items?
Yes, I do. I'm recommending a series of closely scheduled public workshops to be convened to elicit public sentiment in focusing our goals and therefore the resultant actions that would actually be laid out in the plan by the time the plan is fully developed. Questionnaires would be available online, and I have drafted what is clearly a much shorter questionnaire than I've seen in various other plans, whether they be previous to this town and village or to others across the state and elsewhere. What I concluded from my own research is that questionnaires are not only of limited value largely because of the response rates. I found that even though response rates for master plans might average in the neighborhood of 10%, that didn't stop the preparers of the plans in other cases from doing a fairly exhaustive analysis and drawing various conclusions. I think that may serve, unfortunately, in some cases to discourage those who didn't return the questionnaire. And in any case, if you think about it, there's so many qualitative issues. Even the best prepared survey, as it starts to become more lengthy, it starts to almost compartmentalize things in a way that makes us forget that comprehensive planning is all about individual actions that can address several items at once. They're hardly compartmentalized. They're hardly separate from each other. And I think what I'm suggesting is that at least 5, if not more, upon request of certain organizations with space to offer, where the format would be identical. I'm developing a PowerPoint presentation that would give people the background for our last adopted plans, as well as the significant planning activity that's gone on since '94 and '95 in adoption of the last plans. The idea would be to have several so that if you miss one or see one on TV and a viewer decides that they would have liked to have attended, there are still several left. We may be able to, of course, provide public notice of these things in one fell swoop, listing the dates, times, and places. Even open to having, like, for example, take Woodland Pond. Woodland Pond might have the space to accommodate not only their own residents who might be interested in this discussion, but even, because it would have to be a public meeting, even others who might come down because they might have missed another forum. So this is a little bit of an alternative suggestion rather than what I've seen in over-reliance on the questionnaires. And I'm suggesting that if next Wednesday, the 14th, if I submit to the committee this presentation to see that it is satisfactory, then we could go ahead and schedule and publish a notice and begin to place a notice on cable access channel in order to promote it and let folks know that. And again, the intent is to garner input, particularly on what people would like to see accomplished by this plan. Master plans should not be almanacs of information. They should really be comprehensive in how they approach issues. So whatever issues those are, those should be the assessment of those should be comprehensive in the solutions. And if I may, I'll just mention the. I'm sorry.
Do you have that the outline that you gave me?
Yes. Yes, actually, I did. I forwarded, and I can forward it to any others. I forwarded it to committee members. Michelle does not have it, of course, so I can forward it to her. And that was, it came down to one page. And again, it was a departure from what is, well, I was going to say tried and true practice in planning. However, I don't believe it is tried. It's tried. I don't believe it's true as intended. It's trying to glean too much and draw too many conclusions from a relatively select group of responders, and also they tend to be sent out to households. Now, in some communities where owner-occupied properties are such the rule, and even the style of housing, single-family detached, that might just almost fit the bill. I don't think it does for the town and village of New Paltz. The idea is to, first of all, not to allow more than one member of a household, whatever type of household that may be, to participate and provide input, and also with the intent to carefully register folks who may show up to these public workshops in order to document who was here for which session and gauge an idea of how much.
Let me just make this, this is not even a suggestion, it's an idea. So we have a community center and village, or a town hall at one end. We have this spot here. There is Woodland Pond, as you mentioned. The college, I know, can make some places available for meetings of this sort. And then, for example, they make spaces available for fora and debates of a political nature even. The high school has space that could probably make. That's 5, I think, right? Is that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5?
Yeah.
Would that be the kind of distribution that you're thinking of, where people would be able to gather, would have the PowerPoint presentation that you're preparing? Yes?
Yes, along with the ability to perhaps complete the survey at that time, or simply give me ideas that I would record, and anyone assisting at the meeting would record, so they're duly noted.
So would the suggestion be that we would do a mailing, maybe to every household in the town and village, and in addition, at each of these meetings, people who sign in would also have the ability, we'd give them time at the end of the PowerPoint presentation to fill in the survey on the assumption that it's short enough that it could be done while they're just sitting. And that is the idea?
Yes.
Are you getting a different type of respondent, though, if you're then asking the people to show up to the meeting and then fill out the survey?
Yeah.
I mean, it shows a certain level of commitment that I think could skew your numbers as well.
Yeah, it could.
You know?
Yes.
And I know there's not, I understand no matter what we're going to do, you're going to have that argument with almost anything, but I do think that that might just have a specific issue there.
Yes, actually, it is. It is a bit of a ding in the effort to make this the pinnacle of, at the outset of the plan, for, this is how you generate momentum. I think sometimes these surveys have tended to almost either discourage people or make them feel how they feel if you've ever filled out a long form census form where you feel like you've really been through something and you're done with it. The idea here would be to build support, let people know that it's more than just a lengthy, fairly intricate survey around the dinner table. It's really, we're looking for more because we have to carry that momentum into adoption of the plan, for this plan to be a plan of action.
I have a question. I'm just thinking about, how we're going to distribute these surveys, generally speaking, and if we have people who are coming to a public information session and filling out the survey there, we can't also be sending those people a survey at home, because then they could be filling it out twice, and that would definitely skew our results.
That's true, and when Tom asked about sending out the ones to property owners as well, I thought it might be, on balance, I thought it might be best, but I see what you mean. That's the one advantage of the way that most comprehensive plans have done this. It's easily tracked when you send it to households and property owners.
Right.
However, we really have to do something much better than that because of the demographics of our community. And but that has been the methodology that's been employed by someone.
I can tell you, the experience that we had when the Citizens Review Committee that I chaired looked at the past plan and then projected not a new plan, but what we needed to do to have a new plan. We sent out a survey. We used the previously existing survey from 1994. We sent it out with water bills. Therefore, we sent it out to whatever it was, 924 addresses. We got back 190 responses, which we thought was pretty good. But it's not a representative sample of this community.
What if,
So we did a handout. We went and we did, at the Downtown Business Association, we handed out surveys, and we got X number back from business people. Then we got one of your colleagues at the college, Mr. Shute, to give out another couple of hundred at the college, but it was not random. It was not a random distribution. But we wound up being much more satisfied that we had a better range of input from various segments of the community than we would have had we only done the quote-unquote more objective survey by sending them out with the water bills.
what I could do is separate. Let's say they're sent in the traditional method to property owners, and merely asking them for their name. I can separate those who might also fortunately attend a meeting and may fill out it again. It would be my job to identify that the same individual and so that would be one.
Trash one of them.
Yes, and then I'm just thinking as I say, well then the question is which one, if they have any, if that individual may have
Change their mind about something, based on.
Can I make maybe just a thought too? I remember when I was on the school board, we once decided that we had this great idea that we would do kind of like a small community forum for one of our meetings, and it was so fascinating. We did 2 or 3 of these, and we found that, and maybe it was just bad sampling, every time we did it, we got people who had specific personal vendettas. And it was just a weird thing and then we thought, well, maybe if you're motivated enough that you know you're going to have the chance, that maybe that you feel that's your opportunity. So one of my thoughts is, what if we held those sessions to talk about the survey as a whole while the surveys are being distributed? So it's also educational about what you're getting, and then not hand them out there. If you're going to come to the event, you're probably engaged enough that I assume you'd be someone who would fill out the survey and send it back anyway. So that way you're not skewing the numbers by having them then do their own as well. You're further educating those people if they want to come out and again do that.
I think that would be effective. Yeah, I do.
It seems like
Do you mind saying who you are for the public?
David Sandler.
No kidding.
Nice to meet you.
It seems from what I'm hearing you say with this shortened survey and these meetings that you're really looking more for ideas from the public and not necessarily weighted opinions. And maybe there's no need to think of it as a survey, as rather than just a request for ideas.
Yes.
Because I don't think you're going to be weighted. Even if you have a 90% scientific survey, I don't think the master plan is something that you're looking for weighted opinions that way.
I've come to that similar conclusion myself, and of course, as you know, in New York State, unlike some other states, we are not as encumbered with. There are some states that say every 6 years you must review your master plan and update the following 7 or 8 elements. New York State is not that way. A comprehensive plan can be undertaken different ways and can have different foci and different recommendations. So yes, but we could do that. Again, it's really, that's part, self-determination is really, if there's a catchphrase for this plan, it's self-determination, community self-determination, okay, where what do we want? We know that we've seen policies discussed in the case of individual agenda items for village and town and even planning and zoning board meetings. So the idea is to garner some sort of consensus and an action plan, but it's really about self-determination, not letting everything happen around us and to us, but self-determination.
But one important thing is that we need, however many good ideas there are, we need to have an idea that we know we're going to implement.
Right.
So there are many different approaches that you could take to get input, but we're going to have one such idea that we're going to implement, whether it's having a meeting, getting a survey, and then doing it over and over and over again, having a meeting and getting input either by people volunteering or answering preset questions, but we need to have a method that we're going to recommend and that we're going to actually implement. So however many good ideas there are, we're going to have one that we're going to choose.
But when you use that word survey, you're sort of implying that whichever gets the most vote is your priority, and I don't know if you really want to say that.
I mean, that is what we have a draft of here, is something that is like what you're describing, where it's, you know, top tier, second priority, not a priority, kind of thing. But then there is space at the end to say, indicate other topics not listed here, which the plan should focus on. So there's both this like weighted survey of things that, you know, I mean, we probably could guess as to what people in New Paltz would want if it's, you know, like reduction of pollution in all of its forms is one of the questions. Like, I'm sure people would agree with the reduction of pollution. Nobody was going to say, oh, I want more of that. But
meaningless. Yeah.
In a
But
sense,
I can tell you-
as I was writing those, I was questioning. Yes.
We were surprised, though, when we did the survey that we did a few years ago, we were quite surprised that the business owners strongly supported design standards. We thought that Huguenot Street would strongly support design standards, and the business community would say, leave us alone. And indeed, the business community said, no, we really feel that this community has a certain character, and we want to support.
When we did the gateway zone, we
Yeah.
that very much. But
Exactly.
so much more than anyone wants standards.
But I'm arguing that we don't know in advance what everybody is going to find a priority.
And that's why I think it's valuable for us to do this kind of survey, just, you know, because we might be surprised. But I think what you're saying about asking, like, you know, asking for ideas.
If you read the master plan of pick the most conservative community that you'll ever find, it'll still say we're here to support the environment, we want some more growth. It's just the buzzwords are there no matter what. I don't think you're going to find anything very specific. I mean, a master plan is a master plan.
And you know what? After all the plans that have been done and updated and redone, that's not really cynical at all. That's a recognition and an opportunity to take it in something of an alternative direction. As David said, the idea is that I would hold enough meetings. Really, again, the same format. So I'm not taking on so much that each one would have a different character. No, they'd be the same. In different locations and different times at different dates, and they'd be seeking for people to provide ideas and input that can be recorded, duly recorded, and boiled down if necessary to issues and ultimately even groupings of issues or action plans that address more than one at a time.
The action plans is going to be really what makes this a plan.
Yeah.
Because we can have all sorts of objectives and or preferences. Without the action plans, we don't have a plan.
And maybe it's just I'm not familiar with the wording on a survey like this, and I'm happy David brought up some of those points. But for example, the environmental question is an interesting one, because I think most people would simply say, well, of course you support the environment. Is it worded in such a phrase like that, or is it specific to say, and I'm just making this up, would you be willing to be taxed 1% for money to go to solar panels on town hall? Where now you have a specific idea that's relevant to the theme, that's giving you a mission, opposed to the general, yeah, we think the environment is great.
Right. That's where you come into act. That's an action step. And an important one. Because if we're going to support the environment, then we have to do it in some way, whether it's installing solar panels, building rain gardens throughout the village and town, buying our energy from wind and solar. You know, there's got to be there are steps that have to be taken in order to do that.
And maybe the survey is something that can point towards the things that we're looking at, whereas the public input sessions have more of those kinds of questions, of the qualifying questions of, it's like, okay, we believe in this, what are we willing to pay for?
Yes, because I think everyone's going to say that, this is just an opinion, I'm not an expert on it, everyone's going to say they want everything. Sure, we love bike lanes, we love solar panels, this and that, but do people necessarily want to pay for it, or are they willing to pay for certain things too?
Right.
That is a good way to make it more tangible. However, I mean, of course, I do have a concern that I think some of these things, some of the cost-benefit oriented inquiries, some of them, whether it be short-term or mid-term, you may end up with a savings, but with an initial outlay. So it becomes complex when you put, and you know, and that's in the same way that cost-benefit analyses across the board, all the way up to federal regulations. Those cost-benefit studies are difficult to do because it's sometimes in the long run, or even the midterm, we know that some of these things are much cheaper than staying the course, which might be a bad course for the future. So, but you're right, though, that would give it assign more weight to different areas.
Will the master plan be a place to specify that, to point out that
Yes.
long-term gain from?
Yes, I was just afraid of being too verbose in the survey, but you know what? I looked at a variety of surveys, and more time than not, I saw a lot of commonalities. It almost was a standard procedure, almost for every plan for every place. Now, that would be fine if the response rates were overwhelming and things like that. But yes, that would be in the plan as far as the cost-benefit nature, and even the CEQA review for the plan should touch upon that too.
Well, so if we have 14,000 citizens, and of the 14,000 citizens, say, I'm going to make up numbers, 11,000 are persons of voting age, and we did a survey or surveys, what would we anticipate our response rate would be, and what would we be satisfied with as a response rate that would therefore inform us about the next step, which was to begin to lay out strategies for accomplishing objectives or action plans. What would we be looking for? What kind of a response rate are we looking for?
Well, I'd like to see it much closer to a third or more when all is said and done. In other words,
So you'd want to see 3,000 responses.
That's true. And by the way, I should also just one footnote. Although some are not of voting age, the trend in planning, which I embrace, has been to say that for too long we've been counting out the people in the higher secondary school grades. Of course they're players in the community, even if you're 16 or 17. And now there weren't when I went to school, but there are now classes on community
Participation in government and things like that. Yeah, I mean, and look at Dan. I think we have an example here of somebody who got involved at an early age. I mean, even earlier than I did. Is what I say that. I know I'm young too, but you were still in high school when you ran for school board, right?
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
And that's also.
I think that's a good example.
And of course, Ariana is another example of where it just so happens that our community and our SUNY campus seem to keep some graduates, and not only that, but the graduates become endeared with the community and want to be very much a part of it. So there's that pattern. So that's where I come back to being very pleased that Michelle is with us through this process, and that we could perhaps find space on campus to do things such as
And a way to get input, and I would say from the staff and faculty, as well as students. We're not just looking, because there's a very, very large number of professional persons about 300 feet from here who are very invested in this community, and we need to get input from them. Because very often there's a wall that seems to run, down Platico and Hasbrook, and
In some respects.
we need to have a lot of doors in that wall to get influence back and forth.
Yeah.
So I would like to get real input from the college community, and I want to figure out how to get real input from even those members of the college community who are not living at the college, but are living right up the block here.
Right.
I mean, within, again, a very few hundred yards of this space, there are approximately 1,000 students living. Approximately 1,000. We should get some input from them. We have to figure that out.
And in the same, I mean, even the Oracle may be available.
that's a great idea.
I think that's a capital idea. We should really.
So briefly, one of the things I noticed about the Oracle when I had first moved here was that I hadn't known either the ASP, where I went to school, Albany, the Albany Student Press, or any other school, to actually, the Oracle actually covers
Village
the village,
town,
because we're cheap by Jowl, and so many students live in the village. So it's really one community, and the Oracle has a talented journalist.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot better than my paper.
The only thing I would say about the New Paltz Oracle is that we are at the very end of the
Exactly,
college
that's
And
what
they
I
just
was
set up their
saying.
last
They're going on
issue, yeah.
hiatus for 3 months.
Yeah.
so-
Yeah. So if we want that kind of input, it either would have to happen like right now.
I think they're
And-
done.
Yeah, I think they're done, yeah.
The last-
Thursday was the
They're
last one.
studying now, so.
I was surprised to see some
Yeah.
college students already home from other colleges.
Absolutely,
You know.
Yeah.
Well, in that case, let's put it this way: it will not be too late when they reach late August.
Yep, we was.
It will not be too late. Then again, these are the initial public sessions, and then we go on to other milestones. But even the student government, I've had the opportunity to meet and work with several from the student government, which obviously is going to have some turnover. But that's once again something I would look forward to in the new semester.
Where do we go from here?
Okay, actually,
Yeah.
Michelle's going to have to leave.
Yeah, actually,
yes,
yeah, I'm a little late going.
I'd like to lay out one suggestion. I did get a chance just to bring it up to Michelle before our meeting began, and that is we, as part of this focusing of the plan, or at any time between the committee and all the participants of the plan, we need to set a horizon year. In other words, what's the outer limit of the year that, it doesn't mean we can't change our plans along the way or reevaluate them, but what is the outer limit? In New York State and a lot of other states, they either require, but in New York State they might suggest something like 5 or 10 years, but as far as the outer limit, I'm going to suggest that New Paltz look to at least 2030. Now that sounds pretty futuristic, but of course it's really only 15 years away. The idea is that I'll bet that many members of the community and have an idea, or actually look conceptually that far into the future. That's my impression of a lot of members of the community. So, I mean, again, it was just yesterday that a report came out, and I'll leave it to our viewers and others to read it themselves, but talking about how the change in weather due to the overall warming of the planet is having effects that they can attempt to pinpoint in recent years and in the immediate future for the Northeast, for the Southeast and the West, all these other regions.
Yes.
It's not gospel that it's going to happen this way, but we already have some experiences to draw upon, and to say that some of the extreme weather we've seen is an inconvenience would be a vast understatement, of course.
Well, I hope, though, that if we set an outside horizon of 15 years, that we're setting several much nearer term objectives. New York State does want comprehensive plans that are at least, let's say, updated, if not redone, every 5 years or so. And while we know that New York is permissive in this matter, it's not stipulated in law that you must have a plan, or a plan of this sort even. We know that there are consequences, including legal consequences, if you don't have something in place that you're attending to, because you can't make changes in your zoning if you don't have a recognizable, comprehensive plan that helps to make sense out of the zoning.
Absolutely.
And the courts find unfavorably against municipalities that don't do that. So,
Picture this. If I were to, at one of these workshops, call attention to the idea of the outer limits or the planning horizon, I've already, and just as you mentioned, Harmon, you're right, to comport with the intent of what we know the statutes are, and we'd have approximately 5-year intervals or even less in the outset of in the immediacy after adopting the plan. We would have certain goals, but the goals would be somewhat in tune with what we see a little further out.
Yes.
So there's the idea of what unites us for the most part about the future, because I have a feeling that New Paltz, the community of New Paltz, thinks a little bit more about some of these things than others. So therefore, but you're right, then you have to bring it back to, okay, take that outer limit, and then bring it back to, until you get to the present and time of plan adoption, and then you can even have 2-year intervals, and then they grow larger, but there probably is something to unify us at the end.
I want us to be realistic in what we're going to present to our governing boards, and if we said 15 years, or if we use the 2030, I think that there'll be gasps in the room unless we follow immediately with more near-term stages on the way to 2030.
Well, and
Clear about that.
And I agree with that. But I will say, too, that, the city of Kingston, for example, because I do follow this a little bit, they've talked about what to do with their waterfront. And as a long-term situation with weather changes in our environment. So it's not unlike our local communities to look far ahead for that anyway. So, and I agree with you, I just think you have to have a mix, but I do think that that's important to start to keep in mind those type of issues too, because frankly, I mean, if we don't, who does?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I like the idea of, the way I wrote it in the notes here is that we look at our plan as taking us through the year 2030 and break it down into 2-year intervals, which I think if we were able to truly do that and start with, okay, well, this is where we want to go in the next 15 years, and what do we need to do to get there, and this is what we'll do in the next 2 years. That seems to make sense.
Yeah.
Closer intervals at the beginning, and then getting
Like wider
I agree.
And then, of course, all along the way, there's the much less ballyhooed reevaluation of plans, and that's what we've been talking about here. Whereas it's not always approached in that way. It's sometimes the plans.
So before Michelle leaves, because
Yes.
we were already holding her, not that we don't need to finish because we still have a quorum when you leave. But what do you want to say? Next steps.
Okay, the next steps is by next Wednesday, my submission of a presentation largely consisting of slides and notes under PowerPoint to see if this is found to be good and satisfactory to the committee for me to utilize. At that time, we can advertise and give public notice for a whole series of meetings at different times and places. And one thing I didn't mention is perhaps a Saturday one in the library if they might be able to accommodate us.
That's what I said.
Yeah, good idea.
Yeah.
Good idea.
Beyond that, then there's the matter of
Can I just ask one question?
yes.
In the previous plans that I know this community has done, I don't know about other communities, the plans were basically written by a citizens group, and the consultant played a fairly small role, mostly in collating and printing, and it sounds a little different here. I'm wondering, is there no citizen group plan for this?
No, actually, there should be a stakeholder group, and actually that is something I promised before now. It is I who's behind in that. Now, of course, we haven't, at the same time, I haven't gotten past myself in that regard, so I haven't fulfilled other milestones yet, but that is important. And actually, the one thing I'd like to say with it, my thought is that wary of having different sub stakeholder meetings. I'd like to, even if it was only once a month or a lot of people around a big table, I'd rather have that where everyone's together, whether or not they're from one portion of the community or another, or a group with a particular interest. I want everyone to be together. I think I could be disappointed if I broke down into separate groups where people aren't together, even if they're not all talking business or the environment. Really talk about both, because all these things tie in. But you're right.
When you're sitting there writing, like, should this be zone this or that, is this the group that you're going to come and discuss it with, or is there this other group that's going to make those decisions?
There should be another group, if I may answer.
Well, no, decisions are different. I mean, we're an oversight and guidance, if you will.
But you're still overseeing the process.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of who's
He's
writing the
running.
words.
He's going to come up with a plan.
Uh-huh.
Well, David's question's a good one in the sense that without a group with giving individual invitations to participate, that would be something missing. That's something that's typical of plans that I embrace a great deal. Again, I'm very wary, and from conducting meetings on different topics in my former role with the village, I'm concerned about different groups meeting when they're not together and conveying to one another that there tends to be misunderstandings, and
Yeah.
so.
You're saying there tends to be misunderstandings in New Paltz? Is that what
Yeah,
you're saying?
yeah, like every other
I'm trying to get
community.
that on tape. No.
I'm just thinking in terms of, like when I served on the Gateway Committee for the village, if I dug out that plan, even though we have a paid consultant, if I dug out that plan, I could find a third of it that were actually my words that I typed out, and they're in there.
Yes.
I'm just wondering where that comes in this plan.
David, we have, as I hope you know, adopted very largely that gateway. Are you talking about?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was adopted, yeah.
Okay, so adopted.
First gateway, not
The first gateway.
Yeah.
We also had a very elaborated draft of a plan by a consulting group for the town, which the town found entirely
I was on
unsatisfactory.
that committee as well.
So, but we have
The
this.
town chickened out.
We have this big, huge draft plan.
Yeah, I just emailed it to today, but
David's
what I'm saying is that I'm just trying to clarify the role of the consultant versus the committee members, I guess.
Right.
I'm not a little...
And also a stakeholder group, if you will, assign any name you wish, of people from all portions of the community involved and concerned with different
So, for instance,
interests.
if I want to get involved in this, should I ask to be on this committee? Should I ask to be in the stakeholder group?
The stakeholder
Where is our role?
group, yeah. This is the guidance committee.
Did we
and would
have-
ultimately forward it to the gov, but you're right, that is an important piece.
Okay.
When we put together this committee, and I could be wrong because I remember the meeting we did it, which there was heavy debate over the form of this committee. Did we have a role for a at-large citizen, if you will?
No, we had a proposal for a significantly larger committee
I remember that.
that I believe Sally made, and it did not get passed. So this group,
This was the final.
this was approved by
Just checking.
both boards acting jointly as a guidance/oversight committee, but not to be the stakeholder committee.
Okay.
Well, stakeholder, not committee, but stakeholder group.
Yeah.
So that's another
Okay, that's-
another step that needs to be made.
That's right.
And Kurt needs to come up with a way of getting that group together.
Okay.
Are you volunteering?
I am?
Yeah.
Excellent.
I'd be happy to.
I'm really sorry.
Yes,
No,
no,
thank you
it's
for
all right.
joining us.
You know, they'd be pushed
nice
Michelle,
to
I'm
meet
very
you, yes.
happy that you were here. We'll,
Great.
of course,
Just let me know
we
when
may
what's coming
schedule
next.
another
I'm taking the
meeting.
notes.
Great.
I'll send you the
Yeah,
next.
thank you.
We'll schedule another, what's the best time for you? Or what's the
Are you
least
talking about
bad time?
evenings?
Yeah, like this, 5:30.
After next week, it's really, my evenings are pretty free. I'm tied to my son who has stuff going on, but, I can usually.
We'll be in
work that
touch,
out.
and we'll try to get you options.
Yeah, but usually evenings are good.
Okay, very good.
All right? All right.
Thank you
so
again.
much.
Yes. By the way, somebody else who I bumped into in the kitchen just before our meeting also volunteered
We're
to,
doing good then. Yeah.
Rachel Rebecca,
Oh, good.
who was on my Citizens Committee when we did the review back in 2009-10.
But like I said, ultimately the stakeholder group I seek to involve may seem like a large number of people, but I'm very hesitant to say that we should break down into smaller
Well,
groups.
let's just say that that's an objective is to have the stakeholder group defined at least by next time.
Yes.
Right, so
There we
the
go.
definition of what we mean by that should be defined by next time, and then perhaps by the time after that, the week after that, we'll have persons being nominated somehow for that group. So we need a
When you say
process.
define, you mean the role that they're going to play?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what are our goals then for our next meeting at this point?
Okay. By next.
I need you to tell me what our goals are. I said what our goals are for this meeting. What are our goals for the next meeting?
Okay.
I think our goals for the next meeting are to review the PowerPoint that Kurt is going to be, has already begun working on and will be completing.
By May 14th, correct?
Yes, actually, next Wednesday, and then maybe the 15th. Or no, I'm sorry, that's the 14th.
It's the
Okay.
14th.
Wednesday, the 14th is when
Okay.
it'll electronically provide it to you.
Great.
So I think
The
that will be,
survey it also, the survey itself, which we already
Yeah.
have. I think we need to do a critique. We need to
I agree.
do a critique of that survey.
And this may be overly ambitious,
Critique of the
and
survey.
please stop me if this is. Do we want to try to also come back with 5 locations or
Yes.
times for these workshops so that we can be able to notice them, even if it's not for some time, but just so that it's down and out there?
That's not overburdening. That's
Okay.
actually, because I have been thinking about that, and I was just wondering, perhaps is there a corner in town, maybe west of the river that where there might be some, because town hall, I mean, it's not that far to travel to town hall, but I'd like to make it as easy as possible and inviting it to people as possible throughout the town and village. So yeah.
All right.
and there's going to be 5 of them, that's what the number.
It's the number we have, yeah. Okay.
The library seems like a really
Yeah, I'd like that.
much more than the community center.
I need to approach the director and see, but again, a Saturday,
Sally
I
might
thought
have been
might
in
be,
there.
There's a room that's available. They're good. Just have to ask for it.
Given that it's only a block away from here, though, would we rather have it there than here, or would we rather have it here and there?
Well, I think we've got a short list of places already, so we can discuss this right now. I think you said Woodland Pond, the
Here's
community
right.
center. I guess either the the community center or town hall. So those are essentially the same
Right.
location.
Right.
Village hall or the Elting library. We could do one at each, or we could just do one. I mean, the Elting library is a nice community.
Yeah, it's more
thing.
neutral.
Well, here's a good way of looking at it. Why don't we just say that it sounds like everyone likes Woodland, right? So there's one. The high school seems to be like a great general place. Everyone knows where high school is. Anyone have any opposition to that?
Would it be in the auditorium? It's not to have a meeting as opposed to a presentation.
We could do it in the auditorium. We could also do it in the Audion, which is where the school board meetings are,
Right.
which is what I actually thought we would do.
What is it called? The
It's the
Or
Audion.
the,
audio.
Audion.
that sounds great if it's available, but I'd be happy to.
Yeah, and it shouldn't be an
But I
issue.
like the location just because it's such
high
a focal
school.
point in the community, so.
So that gives us 2.
Well, when we had a meeting about the bus plan.
Yeah.
And the college has this beautiful room for us.
It's this in the students.
There's a lot to say for that room.
I think,
Oh, in the sub, yeah, in the student union building, yeah, I know what you're talking about. It's like 62 and 63. 'Cause
You go up the stairs and down the stairs. Yep.
Yeah,
Michelle Ray.
and that's a good room because you can the chairs are movable, so you can have
It's
a
got a
circular-
podium.
Yeah,
It's all great. Yeah.
exactly.
It's a great call.
Right.
yeah, I'd like that very much. Yeah.
So that's
Again,
3.
The idea is that, some people, it's going to be targeted for some people to more easily attend, obviously Woodland Pond and the college. However, the public's still going to be invited, and they're going to be able to attend any of these, regardless of whether it's on campus or at Woodland Pond.
Right.
That's as long as Woodland Pond would like to host this and has some extra chairs.
Do you want to do one on Huguenot Street? I'm just throwing out an idea.
Dale Wall?
Yeah. Well, the acoustics in there are horrible, actually.
I don't know that. I mean, I shout at people all the time.
I wouldn't mind, again.
Well, I think if we have these 3 locations and then we did one at the community center and one at the Elton Library, that would be
That's 5. Well,
fine.
Kurt mentioned to the other side of the river. I mean, this Mohawk Reserve has a wonderful space. Is that too far away?
I think that's
They
technically
do,
Gardner.
But it's not New Paltz.
Yeah,
Is
it's
what I was
Gardner.
just thinking.
Gardner.
Also, and I don't know what they charge.
The
Something
iron.
like this, they wouldn't charge me.
No.
Hold on,
Okay.
Gardner.
I mean, I don't
What
know.
about Unison?
Yeah, actually,
Oh, and that's across the river. Or,
That's across the river.
Yeah.
That's a really good.
I like that idea too. In other words, we're starting to capture, you can see how we're capturing different audiences,
Yeah.
but yet you're still able to go to those if you missed the last one because
Yeah,
of the
I like that was a really good one, Tom.
Yeah.
So we're,
So I think it's okay if we have
we,
more.
we have
It's okay.
more than 5 then that we could be choosing among.
Maybe we don't have to do it at the high school if, if we're thinking about like locations of where people are. Woodland Pond is like on that, basically same road, north side of it.
It's 2 miles away.
It's more, if it's symbolic, it's kind of like Woodland Pond is to make sure we're saying we want senior input.
Right,
Well, that
and
is-
then the high school
High
saying we
school would
want
be to
this,
say
yeah.
we want young people's input.
And parents
That's one way to
and-
look at it.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm definitely making a statement about Woodland Pond because I know that a lot of residents lived elsewhere in the village and town before relocating to Woodland Pond, and I just think it's a, I'm going to approach them and ask them if they'd like to.
I don't think it's bad to have more locations than we will sessions because as we're planning it, it's good to have options.
And like I said, I think we can do this in one public announcement, so it doesn't cause so much additional work just because because it's the same presentation and the same
Okay,
purpose.
so
We'll be attending all 5.
by next Wednesday,
Yeah.
we're gonna have input on the PowerPoint, well, you're gonna have delivered to us.
Yeah.
The
The PowerPoint
Yeah.
presentation. We're gonna have input on the survey instrument. We're going to identify the probable location and schedule,
Dates, times, and locations.
date, time, and locations for minimally 5 public community presentations.
Yes, and I might add that I've identified so far, Memorial Day comes on the 26th this year.
Yeah.
So that I suggested May 28th to June 10th. In other words, we can, just to give everyone an idea that in spite of the fact that I've fallen behind so far, that these can be accomplished the same format, but increasing the response within that time frame. June 10th was, that was
Yeah, I'm sorry, can you
just a
give those-
suggestion. Wednesday, let's see, Wednesday, May 28th, and Tuesday, June 10th. So that was to try to give the committee a sense that yes, I did try to pin this down.
Maybe something like the Woodland Pond one might be a daytime meeting. and
Yeah.
it's gonna be neat.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, actually, and there could perhaps even be 2 in a day because we know how tough scheduling is. We have folks who have other things that are going on, and so that's so once the committee finds satisfactory the presentation, then I can go with it, and we can begin to garner as much public input as possible as to priorities and what this plan is all about.
All right.
Another room that's kind of nicer than either the town hall or the community center would be BOCES.
I was thinking about that.
Same location, but it's kind of
Yeah.
conducive.
What was there? The proposed Millbrook Preserve had their master plan meeting in that room
Yeah, we've got a lot of meetings
in the
there.
conference center.
Yep.
All right. We now have, I think, 9 potential locations.
Well, I listed 7 and I left out Village and Town.
You left out Village and Town Hall. Okay.
Yeah, I got some.
Woodland Pond High School, College Town, Dale Hall, Elton Library.
Who knew we had so many venues, guys?
What else do we need to accomplish tonight, guys?
For next week, and you also say you wanted to have a list of roles for the stakeholders.
We want to have a definition of the stakeholder group.
Yes. Well, there's well, it's function, which is going to be fairly straightforward, and then there's
Constituted.
yes, and how it's constituted and how many members, and actually
This is the stakeholders group, right?
yeah, I'm bashful to even put an immediate cap on it. As you might imagine, I mean, my sentiments in general are, I want to, welcome a lot of members to this. We're going to need to know that there's going to be a meeting where certainly someone could have a proxy they could send, depending on who they are on the stakeholder group. But that I'm going for, as tedious as it may be, scheduling some of these things for a large group. It's really important. I don't want, in looking back, for folks to say, I wasn't a part of that discussion, I wasn't aware of that discussion, and I want, it doesn't matter whether they're coming from different perspectives with different interests and concerns, but all these things are overlap, and that's really the true meaning.
Well, I was saying for myself that efficiency is not all it's cracked up to be. However, you can't so elaborate it that it becomes impossible to have a meeting without making some people mad at you. So
Yes.
you've got to balance the size and complexity of that with the size and complexity of the task.
Right. So what I'll need to do is to look at different entities and do my very best with the help of people who are willing to.
Well, maybe David, having worked on this, would be able to give you at least some input about what an effective, even though efficiency is not always cracked up to be, an effective and relatively efficient group of stakeholders could be.
You might also want to try to get a sense of how much of a commitment it is, so people know if they want to volunteer or not.
Yes, I can lay that out pretty accurately. Yeah.
What else do we need to accomplish tonight? Because we have another meeting.
I know, we're not leaving town. You and I. Yeah. We'll have to get dinner. And then
Anything else that we need to accomplish tonight?
I think
Are you satisfied with what we've done? Are you satisfied with what we've done?
Yeah, actually, I feel like this has been our most productive meeting so far, and we have really identified objectives.
All right.
that
I'm
we
looking forward to it, guys.
so, yeah,
Kurt,
excellent.
do you
Thank
need
you
to
all.
accomplish something else tonight?
No, actually,
Next meeting date?
those are the things to.
Next meeting date?
Yeah.
let's pull up the
Sorry.
calendar.
No, no problem. Not at all.
Okay, let's talk about this.
Did we say, Charter, did we promise Michelle that we would give her options? Do we want to pick 2 different days for ourselves?
Uh-huh.
Okay, well, and Kurt, you said you would get us some of
By
that
next
material
Wednesday.
next Wednesday, so obviously.
So I think we should give ourselves a little bit of time
Yeah,
to
that's,
review it.
yep. So,
Thursday.
I guess, well, the 15th, do we have, I think I have a town board
You have a
meeting.
town board meeting?
Yeah,
No, too bad.
yeah.
I have that in my calendar.
I'm going to be inaccessible for a while after that.
16th?
Yeah.
Can you do 16th?
No.
Can you, ooh.
When are you re-accessible?
Around the, wow, I'm not even sure.
Sorry.
This is not good.
Does the 14th work for you?
I can make the 14th.
I know that that's
I mean,
putting
we
you
have a
on.
village board meeting, but we could meet before it,
Yeah,
Okay,
as we could with the town board meeting if that works.
that's true. Yeah, I can meet
Although you're
before.
here on Wednesday anyway, so if we're meeting before a meeting, regardless.
Yeah.
we could meet at, if we're meeting on town board night, we can meet at town hall,
Oh, I'll host you guys. That'll be fun.
all right?
And that's fine because I can go through with you as expeditiously as possible the slides. It may not, and then you still have a
Yeah,
chance to look
actually,
at it afterward.
that could be a productive way of doing it anyway, kind of just going through it together.
Why don't we do that?
Okay, so we're looking at the 15th?
We'll meet on the 15th.
Great.
Do you have the ability to make sure we have a projector? Is there one at town hall?
I'll talk to Rosanna. I'm sure there is. I don't see why there wouldn't be. Yeah, I'll talk to her.
I mean, I don't imagine that everybody that comes and uses the projector brings their own.
Yeah, no, exactly. We must-
I mean, we have one, I believe. so
Yeah.
if we
I'll
need
talk to
it-
Rosanna. I'm
Last
sure
year
we
we purchased a projector. Now, there's also I can easily also not only electronically but print it out in the same way that when you go see to a conference where there might be a
Right,
presentation, there's a
right.
handout, and it can have the slides and the
Oh, yeah.
notes. So
Well, actually, yeah, why don't, I mean, maybe that's, I mean, certainly if you send it to me, I'm gonna have it on this anyway.
yeah.
What time am I thinking?
5:30?
5:30?
Probably gonna do again?
Yep,
Okay.
all right? 5:15, 14, 5:30.
All right. Well done, everyone.
That was like a cryptic code, Tom.
With that, can I make a motion to adjourn?
Yes,
Yes?
Well, I think I need a second.
Do we do that? Second?
I just, why not?
he did
Sure.
it. He did it.
You
All
should-
in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing none, meeting adjourned.
Meeting adjourned.
Sorry.